I'm going to do a video today on unboxing this Kobalt router. And then I got two charcuterie boards over here that I've started working on. And everything's done up to this point. I got to cut out the handle. And then I'm going to run a flush trim bit around it. So that would be a good opportunity to use that with this router. Showing me do that for a demo. Alright, we'll start here. Get this thing opened up. First open it up, the first thing you're going to have there is the fence. You got the legs. Of course they're made out of a really hard plastic. You get a booklet with it. Here's the table. And this is a crafted aluminum. Inside this box you got your miter gauge. They're pretty cheap. I don't even use. These are tabletop inserts that go right in here. They're for around your bits, using different bit sizes. Here's your feather boards. What I'll show you here is I got just some different router bits here. This is a Bosch. It's a 1/4 inch. This is the one that I use most of the time. And then this is a Diablo. This is a keyhole cutter that I have for cutting in keyholes. This is a round over bit. I'll show you what that means here in a minute. And then I got a set here. It's just a cheap set you can get online with some different bits. I use these for certain things. See, here's a cove bit that I use for cutting a juice groove in some of my cutting boards. Projects like my cutting boards and things, some of the nicer stuff I'm doing, I got a little bit more expensive bits that I have too. I just bought that just to have a whole bunch of a different variety of bits. My flush trim bit with on that, and this seems to work fine, good. So what I'm going to do first, I'll show you using this one here in a minute when I go to do those charcuterie boards. But for right now, we'll set this up. All right, we got the fence in there in the slots. And you can slide that, and then you tighten these down when you get it where you want it. This is your starter pin. It just screws right into this little slot. You'll see it right here. It's threaded. You just hand screw that in there. And what that does for you, make sure you're not plugged in. We're just going to go over. So you're feeding into the cut and not behind the cut. Because if you're feeding it this way, the bit's already turning this way. So when it catches that board, it's going to grab it and shoot it out of your hand. Or it could shoot it out of your hand. So you want to take and have good pressure on it. A lot of people, that's where your feather boards come in. Bit is this. You can get against it and then ease your piece of wood into the bit, and this helps give you stable. And then as you run it, this is a thin board. So I'll go ahead and I'll do a little. This is a round over bit. I'll do it on this here just to show you how it works. See how that works there, and see how that's flush up here. Now, like I was saying, if you raise that bit up above that, it'll put a little lip on this top. Some people like that, and depending on what you're doing, you might like that look. Always want to stay in front of this bit when you're doing it this way. You should never run a board between your fence and back here. But the one thing you're going to keep in mind, if you do that, if you're doing that, you're going to be feeding it in a different direction. That means if you're coming this way, you'd be feeding your board on the back side of your bit, not the front side of your bit. So you'd be going left to right instead of right to left. Anytime you're changing bits or doing anything, you should always unplug this machine, because this thing's right here in front of you. If you're working and you got that thing turned on, see, mine's off, unplugged. If you have that thing on and you're not paying attention, it could very easily catch on something and pull that up while your hands are here. So you always unplug it. Make sure you don't have that thing plugged up when you're doing any kind of working around that bit. All right, I'm gonna This is what I'm going to show you. Is I'm going to work on these charcuterie boards here. I already got these two glued up, cut out. They're ready to have the handles done. I get MDF. You can buy templates online, different templates that are already pre-made that you can use with your router. I cut out my own. What I do is you'll put that on there, and I make it to where it fits right across my board there, and I just line it up on there where I want it, trace it around with a pencil. So that's what we have here. Then I'm going to take my jigsaw and I'm going to cut this out, but you're going to cut just on the inside or outside of the line, maybe a 6, and this is 1/2 inch MDF board, and then your router bit has a bearing that'll run along here. So I'll show you all that here in a minute. So let's go ahead and I'll get this cut out with a jigsaw, and then I'll show you. We'll get that bit on there. I'm using these. Been getting Bosch. I've had pretty good luck with these Bosch, better than the DeWalt's and some of the others. So for a lot of my jigsaw stuff, I use Bosch. And then what I'm going to do is, I want this to stick out over where I'm cutting. Hope you can see that. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to clamp it back here. Board all the way out to the edge. Clamp it back far enough that it's not in the way of my saw, but I don't want, so it won't move. That's good. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out first, and then I'll drill a couple holes and I'll cut that inside out. I'm going to go slow and easy with this because I don't want to mess it up. You can see here where I cut it out. You can just see my pencil line. I stayed just on the outside of it, all the way around. And that's important that you do that, because that pencil line is the line that the flush trim bit's going to cut. So you want to leave just a little bit out here. You don't want to leave a lot. I got to take and drill a couple holes in here to get my jigsaw blade in, and then I'll cut this out, and then we'll be ready to go to the table, to the router. Okay, I just drilled these 2 holes. That's big, just big enough that I can get my router blade in. My jigsaw blade in there. So this is what it looks like after I cut it out with the jigsaw. You can see, you can still see my pencil line. We're gonna take this round over bit out, put our flush trim bit in. First thing you do is make sure you're unplugged. We'll take this starter bit out. Probably not gonna, I'm not sure if I'm gonna need that or not. So then you gotta, first thing you do is go down here and you gotta open up the lock. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this little insert out. I'm gonna go ahead and find the lock button on here. Raise this up. Going to take our wrench. Loosen that. Make sure you don't lose your collet. See, these bits have a bearing on the top of them that runs around the board. Open this up. Now this is our flush trim bit. So we're going to take, when we put that in, it just sits right down in your collet, just like before. You're going to find your lock. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down. When I do this, I'm going to go to the smaller hole. This is the smaller one, smallest one that comes with it. So we're going to put that back in. Show you how I do this. See, this is going to go on top here. With our lines. So you can see the edging. That's what the router bit's going to cut off. So you're going to line it up, and what we'll do is we're going to tape it. I'll start off with going across here. You want to tape this all the way around pretty good because you don't want that template to move while you're doing this. You're running that bit around there. Some people use double-sided tape, and you can, but I think this works just as good, if not better. I'm going to tape it all the way over, and then I'll trim it off after I get it all on there. So now that we got both sides of we got both our template and our charcuterie board taped up with our painter's tape. One thing you want to do when you tape, before you tape your template, is make sure that it's going the right way. So this is going to go glued to this. We're going to put glue on this tape and then glue them together. So then once you get done, you can just peel it off. I'm going to use this Loctite super glue, the professional liquid. I've tried a couple different ones, and this one seems to work the best. I like it. It glues quickly. It dries pretty quick. I've tried some others, super glues, and it took a bit for it to dry. So this one here is the one I started using. Set this right out of the way. Then when we do this, we want to line it up to where it's perfectly with the lines we had already made. Make sure that you're right where you want it to be, that you don't cut it crooked. And make sure you got a line all the way around the edge and inside. So that looks good. So once we get that, we'll just go ahead and press it all down. A minute ago, I'm going to put this on the back just for demo so you can see the blade, because you're not going to cut it like that. Yeah, we're still open there. Alright, so what we're going to do, let me make sure you can see this. You should be able to. Is we're going to crank our bit down to where we want, when we run this in, we're going to run it into the blade. We want to have it with that bearing right here. It's just running on our MDF board. We don't want it to be running on our cutting board. We want to make sure it's up here on our MDF board. So that looks good there. We're going to lock this down in here, locking it in place. We're back. I moved the router table over here, and I moved my table saw out of the way, because the way I'm going to do this, I didn't have room over there. With this flush trim bit, and what I like to do is, before I even start with it being this kind of a design, if you're running a regular board right to left, we know, but with this here, you got to kind of think. I like to, for me, I want to think ahead of time how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to go right with it. And then as I get here, I'm going to turn my board so I can keep it going. Keep the cut going right to left. And as you get up here, then I'm going to turn it. Keep it going right to left. So you're going to continue to turn this board. You don't want to wrap it around and try to cut it through the back. You want to keep it in the front and keep it going right to left. So I like to take a minute and think about it before I actually start cutting it, so I know ahead of time what I'm doing. All right, we're going to get this thing fired up. Well, that went pretty smooth. Before I touch anything, I'm going to unplug that. As you can see there, we got a nice pretty cut around that. No chipping or splintering. You know, we'll do some sanding. You see, it gave us a nice pretty cut. So now the fun part. The fun part is going to be cutting this inside out. We got to do the same thing. We want to go right to left. You want to work it into your bit so that the bearing goes into your template, and then go right to left. So I'm going to go this way. Once I get here, I'm going to try to turn it and go this way. And then I'm going to have to turn it and go this way, because it's going to be real easy for you to want to go, oh, the backside. That's easy. But I'm telling you, you don't want to do that, because it's going to jerk it. It's going to likely bust your board. I got this already in there. I'm going to set the template over the bit before I ever turn it on. But make sure it's in the center and not up against any wood when you turn it on. But I'm going to do that because I don't want to have it running and trying to fit that template over top of a running blade. So I'm going to have it already in there. And I'm going to use my hands. Just be very careful and pay attention to what I'm doing here. Don't get your fingers into that blade. So we're going to go slow and easy. And we'll get some of this dust off here. I unplugged it for a second. All right, we'll try this again. So. So see, we cut it out. We had no issues. I made sure that board was in the center, and I lifted it straight up so I didn't hit the blade, and I had no garments or anything close. But you can see how well it turned out. You can peel this right off. Careful we don't break our template. Oh, let's do this. Let's do it this way. Peel our template off. Okay, so you can see our board there. You see how nice and smooth it did. I'll do some sanding, of course. But that flush trim bit really does a great job on cutting those out. Little, I don't know what you want to call that, little piece here. So on my cutting boards, mine has a little lip there. Maybe that's my signature. I don't know. I kind of like that. I did a little indent in there. Just got to be careful. Take your time. Don't get complacent. Don't get in a hurry. Pay attention to what you're doing. Don't be distracted, and it'll do just fine for you. I'm gonna get this cleaned up, and I'll be doing some more stuff with the router and different things, just like my other shop tools. If you have any questions, put them in a comment. I like to get feedback, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like. See you next time. One thing I didn't talk a lot about in the video is because this isn't really a video on making charcuterie boards. It was more about the router. But since I showed you cutting it out and everything, I'll go ahead and put this at the end. All the sanding in these charcuterie boards is in rounding off the edges and cleaning it up good and getting that sharp edge off and making it look nicer. I start off with a 120 grit. I don't need to do a whole lot of shaping. I just need to clean it up. So I start off with a 120 and I sand everything really good with a 120. Go around all the edges and clean it all up and make it rounded off, get rid of the sharpness. And then after I do that, I'll go over it again with a 220 grit, do the same thing. And then after I do that here's one that I've already done it to. This one's already been sanded and cleaned up. You can see how I round off the edges nice and get all that done. And then I take it and I spritz it with water really good. Get it really saturated with water to raise the grain. And then after it's good and wet, I'll wipe it off with a towel, the excess, and then I'll let it set up here until it's good and really dry. And then once it does that, then I'll sand it again with 220. And then I even go over mine with a 400 grit to really smooth it, make it really nice. But it's important, especially with a cutting board or charcuterie board, anything that you're going to get wet later especially, is to get it wet, raise the grain, and then sand it again. And once you do that, then it won't happen. But if you don't do that and sand it, then when they get it wet and wash it, it's going to raise the grain. It's going to get rough and not feel very smooth. So you want to do that, then re-sand it to take care of that. And then after that, and they're completely sanded and all that's done, then I'll go in and I'll take and oil them with my Walrus Oil, and I really soak and saturate them with that. Let them set for about 6 to 8 hours, wipe it off, and then do it again. Let it set for another 6 to 8 hours, wipe it off, and then it'll be ready to put my handmade wax on. And then I'll wax it really good with my wax, let it set for 15-20 minutes, and then I buff it off. And I'll do that once or twice. And then after that, they're cured and they're ready to be used. And then I recommend that a person once they dry out or every so often when they use it, is to go ahead and put another coat of wax on it and keep it waxed and buffed. And that'll keep your boards in good shape and they'll last a lot longer for you. Here's the Walrus Oil I was talking about that we use to oil our boards with. And here's our homemade cutting board butter that we wax them with after they've been oiled. Here's 3 of them that are finished. You can see how nice they turned out. I'll put a link into the description of everything we've used. And thanks for watching. Please subscribe.